All right, this piece of white birch is going to be this look very much like that shade right there. You start off with a piece of white birch, yellow birch, soft maple. Yellow birch is really pretty. Start off with a piece about 1 foot long and 8 to 9 inches in diameter. Will give you a shade somewhere between 7 and 9 inches tall, and whatever diameter you like. So we're going to start off with this piece here that was freshly cut. You don't want anything that's dry. I'm going to mount it between centers. I found my centers a few minutes ago. I've also modified this spur drive so that there's a drill bit sticking out of there 1/4 inch, and I drill a hole 1/4 inch deep, and that is for safety. So the first thing I'm going to do with birch is you want to remove the bark so it's not flapping in your face all the time. And it also makes wonderful fire starters for those of us who burn wood. So we'll take that off. Yeah, there's a little more on there, but nothing that's going to bother us too much. So the first thing we're going to do is get this somewhat round and put a tenon on it. Just make sure those teeth are biting good. And here we go. And I would use tool of choice. I usually use a bowl gouge, but I'm going to use this rough and gouge tonight so the chips kind of stay in the line of fire here. Try to get your piece somewhere near the butt. There's less chances of there being knots in it. Okay, that's good enough for now. Now we'll grab a bowl gouge, put a tenon on this end. that'll be good for my tenon. Got a parting tool. So that should be good. Now we're going to flip it around. And if you have any questions, still feel free to ask. So we got a nice tenon there. Now make sure that once in a while you stop and recheck your tightness here, because this is really green wood. It will shrink quite rapidly sometime.
Is that a stronghold?
Yes.
Which jaws?
Stronghold and number 3 jaws, the large jaws. Yep. Now if you want to get a shot of this over here, that's the hole that I drilled for my spur drive, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's off center a little bit, okay? And the worst thing that we can do right now is to drive that center in there and wiggle that sideways, okay? So I'm very carefully going to remove wood here until I get to the bottom of that hole. I don't want to just run that center in there. From now on, it's very important that we don't do anything to disturb this thing. So we're going to very carefully just take a little bit of that out. When you start hearing that noise, you know it's not a good noise. So I think we got to the bottom of that hole. So now we can put that live center in there and know that we're center. So now I can true this up. And even when you're truing it up, be careful that you don't push too hard on the wood. Do everything you can to keep this balanced. Now I'm going to be pushing shavings right at you. Okay. I'm going to take a cut like this and get rid of some of this stuff that's way out of balance. Now at this time also I like to start removing some of that wood from the inside. So, only a couple inches, just to lighten up the end a little bit. Must be a knot there. And this is the technique that I'm going to use all the way down through the piece. Is just almost like a shear scraping. We're going to eventually drill a center out with a spade bit, and that's good enough for now. So we need to, right now that's a 10-inch shade. That's way longer than it needs to be. It only needs to be somewhere between 8 and 9 inches. So we've got plenty of room down here. And I'm going to plan, that wasn't good. Good thing I got mats on the floor. I'm going to plan for the top being right about there. Okay. Now I'm going to take some more rough cut. Still too long, I think. The longer you go, the more difficult it gets. I think I'm going to make the top right in there somewhere. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is really do a nice job on this edge. And that's all I have to go in, just 1/4 inch is plenty. So the next thing is to do a little better shaping on that, I think, with my bowl gouge. I used to make these things kind of look like mushrooms, but it's a lot easier and visually, I think, more pleasing to have just a straight line. Still looks long. All right, let's see if we can get a finish cut on this. Now, when I do the finish cut, I take this top edge right here of the roughing gouge, and just about like that at a 45-degree angle. That'll give almost as good a cut as the skew. I used to do these with a skew, but I just haven't used it for a while. Okay, let's try that again. But you can make these any shape you want, like bell shapes, anything you want. Just remember that you're going to need to follow that shape on the inside. That's got a little flare to it on the bottom, a little bit. there. I got a little bit of a line right there. I'm going to try to get out. I don't know if I can. All right, we stopped this for a couple of minutes, and it brought to mind a good point. If you do have to leave this at this point for even a minute or two, keep it rotating at least at a low speed, because your water will start sinking to one side and it'll throw the whole thing off balance. It's all about keeping this as balanced as you can right now. Now, right now, we're going to drill down through there with a spade bit. It drills so much easier than a Forstner. Now, it's a fairly large bit, and I've measured this diameter right here, and we still should have at least 3/4 of an inch of wood either side of that bit over here. And that's good. That should hold it if we're really, really careful. So we're going to drill this out.
Now, is that wobble okay? The bit wobbling?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. I know from experience that that bit is not long enough to get to the bottom, so I ran it all the way in as far as it would go. I have to blow this out here. Now I'm going to put an extension on this bit. And if you keep your spade bit horizontal or somewhere close, it will draw the sawdust right back out at you. Remember, you're drilling right into end grain here, so now we're going to measure, and from where I marked the top of the shade to the bottom is 9 1/4 inches. So I want to bore in with this at least 9 1/4 inches. So 9 1/4 inches is going to bring me just beyond where this changes diameter. It's not real fussy, but go a little bit deeper than where you decide to make the end of the shade. See how much easier that drills than a Forstner bit. So now I'm going to watch the edge of this, and when it's just beyond where I wanted it to be, I'm going to stop. And we'll measure that after we blow it out and see what it looks like. A compressor with something like this is really almost a necessity for doing this. It's very difficult to do it if you don't have it. Now that's 9 inches exactly, so I want to go another 1/4 of an inch. And that should do it. That hole down through the middle there helps tremendously Okay, that's just beyond 9 1/4. That's perfect. Another thing that helps tremendously is a long tool rest. You can modify the size of these shades to fit your tools. You may have to do that. If you don't have a nice long tool rest, you may have to make your shades a little shorter. All right, so now we are going to shut off some lights. Here we go. I've got a light set up on the side here. We've darkened the room a little bit, and we're going to start removing a little bit of this wood very carefully. I tightened up the chuck again, double check that. We want to also, right now that tool rest is a little high, we want to keep it as low as we can so that we can keep the handle of this tool low and get that nice 45 cut. So at this point I'm going to start making a lampshade. I got the inspiration for these from Peter Block. He makes huge ones. I never have made one bigger than about 12 inches on the bottom diameter. That's big enough for me. So now we're looking right here for the amount of light coming through the wood. We're not working for thickness so much as light coming through. Can you see that light over there?
No.
Probably not from that angle.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
I can spin it around in a minute.
Okay. Right. Now with my lathe, once I start hearing that, that means that I'm pushing too hard. Lighten up. So we'll try to lighten up a little bit. Now what I'm looking for here, depending on what material you use, you're going to have to find out how much light you want to come through it. I know that with this birch, if I look for a yellow light, it'll be quite thick. So I need to turn to almost a white light. You want to leave it just a little bit thicker on the bottom, on the very bottom, and drag that tool across there nice and slow. And that's looking good right there, I think. Now I'm going to remove some more wood so that I can push that tool rest in there a little further. When you're working out on the end of this thing, you don't want to get a catch. You got to be kind of careful. Keep your tool rest low so you can keep your handle low. When you get further in there,
Stop turning and then talk. And I think it'll pick up better.
Okay. Yep. All right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. When you do an inch or so, stop and feel it and make sure it feels good to you. This is still a little bit thick, I think, but is that better for you?
Probably not.
Now don't try to put your hand in there and take the shavings out while this thing is turning. You're either going to hurt yourself or break the shade. And that's where this compressed air really comes in handy. Because if the shavings build up in there, of course it blocks some of the light and is not going to give you a true indication of how thick it is. So I'm going to remove some more wood from the very center so I can push that tool rest in there a little further. Put this over here. Yep. Guess we can. Is that going in your way?
No.
Okay, so as you can see that when we drill this out, it wasn't exactly concentric, and that's almost always the case. So when you approach it kind of carefully till you get it smoothed out. This really isn't a project for beginners either. When you get down almost to the end there, you're going to be working your tool off the tool rest 3 or 4 inches. So you want to be cognizant of that fact that you need some experience with your tools. I think we got a knot in there. I used up all the good wood for my grandkids. See the knot? It doesn't show on the outside, but it shows on the inside. And those will, the last one I made, the knot showed up right at the very top. And that wasn't real pleasant. So if you can keep your tool rest close to this edge, it makes your job a little bit easier. So here we go, starting to make a lampshade. Don't do that. So you can see that light is brightening right up now, and still a little bit thick, but it's okay. I'm going to speed the lathe up a little bit. Now I wouldn't go back in here much. If I were any deeper, I wouldn't touch this at all. But I think it's solid enough right now so that I can get one more light cut. Now that's just about perfect right there. As you can see, it's a little thicker on the very bottom. That'll help it not to crack. Now I'm going to rough out some more wood. not making me happy. You can see my tool is right on the edge of the tool rest. I got about a 4-inch overhang there. You hear that noise? It's time to stop and get rid of some of those shavings.
I'm gonna change the camera angle.
Okay. I have to move this tool rest a little bit. Okay. Here we go. I think I'm going to take some more meat out of there so that I can get my tool rest in a little closer. That's really half the battle, is getting your tool rest in there so that you can get where you can work. And
get a shot of the
there. Shot where? Yep. Okay. All righty. I wonder if it would work better for you over there. I don't think it's going to make much difference to me which side this is on. Is that, you like that better?
Yep, just take it away a little bit.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. No, I don't want it anywhere near touching. How's that? That good?
It's good.
Okay, here we go. Now I moved the tool rest to get it closer to this edge. Be very wary when you're moving this. You can bust this thing quick. And make sure you rotate it a few times. They have a habit of touching on the bottom. And when they're close like this, as you might have seen before, the shavings build up quickly. So here we go. Just took a few shavings out of there with the back of the tool. Got to stop and make sure it's clean. Move the tool rest in a little closer. Looks good. Here we go. What I'm trying to do is match this up. The amount of light coming through. A little thick right there, but it's bouncing right now, and I don't dare to go back on it. So I'll go up here and remove some more wood. Alright, I can go in a little bit more, I guess. I also have 3 different length tools. And I start off with the shortest handle and I gradually work my way up to the longest handle. Yeah, I can take some more of that out. You have to stop quite a lot. Alright, I'm gonna trade this tool for a longer handle tool. Of course, it's also sharper too. Fresh tool. It's starting to look like a lampshade. And these graduations of light to dark won't really hurt the overall aesthetics of this thing. After all, it is a solid piece of wood. So I'm gonna raise this tool rest a little bit and put it as close to that center hole as I can and take some more meat out. Now, as you can see, I'm working almost on the horizontal here with the flute at about probably 10 o'clock with a clock face on the end of it, and just cutting with the bottom edge of the tool, and preferably the handle is far enough away from me so that I'm only cutting with the first 1/4 inch or so of the tip. Now, when you're pulling that cut from the center to the outside, even though this is end grain, it's not acting like end grain. You're getting nice shavings in there. So with one eyeball on the outside and one on the inside, we know when to stop when we're roughing this out. Basically, every time we rough out, we're making more room for our tool rest in there.
Another knot.
Oh yeah, we got another knot, yeah. So I got that roughed out. Excuse me. So I get that roughed out so I can move my tool rest in there a little more. And try not to let the bottom of your tool rest get too close to your wood, because those shavings will build up real quick and break something. So we're going to try to get another finished cut here. No, maybe not. Guess that wasn't a finished cut. We needed to remove some more wood. Maybe you don't need a compressor after all. Just a lot of hot air. All right. I can go in there a little more. Be very careful of this not hitting the edge of your lampshade. This is the first time I've ever done this with the light on this side, and it doesn't seem to make any difference, really. It might even be easier because you're naturally looking at this side. So it wants to be a little, and you can see that thing starting to bounce now. It's drying and it's changing shape. So definitely don't come back in here and try to smooth anything out at this point with your tool. So we're going to try to gain another inch or so of finished lampshade. If you don't have your tool pushed back, if you're too parallel to the lampshade, you're going to be cutting with that whole edge, and you're going to be running into trouble. It's too much to cut with that whole edge. You only want to be cutting with the first quarter inch or so. Well, that's not looking too bad. That's a little bit thick in there. We're gonna thin that out a little bit more. See how it's kind of yellow in there, and then there's a white line right there. So we're gonna try to match this color to the one below it. I got a little bit of wood on there. But what works really good is once you get your tool positioned, if you can slide your hand right across the tool rest like that. I gotta stop the cleanup. That's the problem. Okay. Alright. It's still just needs a little touch up in there. Okay, here we go. I've changed out the tool rest to the robust tool rest. It's going to go in a little deeper for me, and it's got a little hook on the end, which is very nice for tool support. The robust is made quite wide down near the bottom, so be very careful that you don't hit the bottom of your shade. And this diameter is a little bit smaller than I like, but it's the only piece of wood that I had. If you can go 7 or 8 inches in diameter, the whole thing gets a little bit easier. The smaller the diameter on the bottom, naturally, the smaller piece of wood you have to work with. So we're gonna, now at this point, I have to have the tool rest fairly high so that it doesn't so the bottom of the tool rest doesn't hit my lampshade because of the small diameter of it. So my tool now is going to be either horizontal or even with the handle lifted a little bit. So we're going to At this point, I'm just trying to get that roughness out from when we drill the hole. Yeah, we've got a ways to go. So I'm going to drop the tool rest just a little bit and work it to my side a little bit, keeping a real close eye on this bottom here. And even this close, it'll build up fairly quickly with shavings and break something. So the whole thing, be just as careful as you can be. But you know, in the end, it's still just a piece of wood. Alright, I'm going to try to move that in a little bit, but before I do, I have to raise it a little bit and move it in. And I even modified this tool rest a little bit by grinding away a little bit of the bottom of the rest here to give me a little bit more room, but I may not have taken enough off. All right, let's see if we can get a couple more inches in there. Okay, we are within an inch or two of where we want to be. I'm going to slide that tool rest in a little bit more, very carefully. Make sure nothing touches. And I think I'm going to get a fresh tool. The one with the longest handle that I have. These are all Ellsworth signature tools, by the way, that I use on these. I like them the best. They have a nice long handle. We ready?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. I gotta stop and clean that again. Careful the tip of that thing there. Okay, I should be able to make a finished cut there for a couple inches. Here we go. I like to have my leg up against the lathe too for support. Any support that you can get will be helpful. coming pretty good. It's probably done to about here. Got another 4 inches to go. I'm gonna try to move that tool rest in again. I can't go any more that way. All right, here we go. You're gonna have to move your camera for a minute. Something's liable to let go here. Not be pretty. I got a bad spot in there. I don't know if you can see it, but a lot of it comes from the tool rest being too high. So again, if we had a bigger diameter here, it would help a lot. Yeah, it's nice.
Pretty much impossible here.
Yeah, it is pretty much impossible. So what I try to do is hold the handle high and achieve the same result. Yeah, I think I cleaned it up. Yeah, I've cleaned it up and I'm almost at the bottom now. So at this point it's 4 inches from the tool rest where it curves to the bottom, but that's where I'm going to have to stay, and the tool rest is right on center, which is not a real good place. It should be low, but we got to work with it. I can't put my tool rest any lower because it's going to hit the bottom of the shade. So here we go. It sounds easy, just remove all the wood that you need to make a lampshade. Yes. I don't know. Of course, there would have to be another knot right up there at the very top. Yeah, that's why if you can get a piece of butt wood, it's nice. Watch that tool. Starts bouncing like that, there's too many shavings in there. You gotta clean them out. Okay, this one right there is still a little thick. We're within a half an inch of where we want to be. We're almost there. Like I said, it wants to be a little bit thick at the top too, because it sits on that ring. And I make my own rings too. It's a lot easier than having a dozen different sizes. I made a little jig, make my wooden rings to fit by going down inside. When this is done, I go down inside to wherever I want the ring to be and take an inside-outside measurement and then make the ring that size, and it's as simple as that. So now I'll take a pencil or anything and hold it between the light and the shade, and I can move it and see that right there is where it starts to get thick, and so that is where I want to cut it, and that just happens to be about a half an inch from where I originally said I was going to make it, and that's going to be fine. At this point, I would normally sand this thing, remove your tool rest very gingerly, and we can turn the lights back on. Occasionally, I like to make these without sanding them. If you get a halfway decent job, especially on the outside, you know, tool marks aren't the end of the world. They show that someone made this thing. If people want something without tool marks, they can buy plastic. So I'm not going to bother sanding this. I'm going to get ready to remove the lampshade, and I will do that with another jig that I made a long time ago. It's a little jig that I made to facilitate removing the lampshade. If you use this adapter that One Way makes, that screws into your chuck and then it screws onto your live center, so now you have a freewheeling chuck on here, and that's a real handy piece. So we bring this up close and we tuck these little ears in right into the lampshade, and we bring it up snug so that it's not going to go anywhere. And I like to bring it up so that it kind of just holds it. And now we could have made a pencil line over here, but I remember pretty much that we're going to cut almost a half an inch away from this edge here. So we're going to do that with, when you have this set up like this, start with your speed slow so you don't really spin that thing. We're going to get a skew, believe it or not. And we're going to attempt to remove this. It's getting thicker than I really want it, so I'm going to go towards the bottom of the shade even a little more, because it should gradually get thinner in that direction. Of course, you want to keep the bevel lined up in the direction that you want to cut, and there she is, clear. So there's our lampshade. Ta-da! So that is a little bit thick on the top, but not real bad. You want a little bit of meat here, like I say, for that ring to sit. I'll sand that up a little bit after it dries. So I usually like to let this dry a day or two, and then I have been using wipe-on poly on these. Normally I use BioShield on everything, but I wanted something a little bit lighter, and maybe something that might be easier to dust for the owner. So that's the lampshade. Okay, I've mounted this piece of oak between centers, and this piece of oak is about 3 years old, and you want something that's really been sitting around for a while, or even a piece of completely dry wood. You don't want green wood for this. And of course, the shape is all yours. I've come upon a shape that I like, and you'll see it take shape here pretty quick. Put a tenon on this. That wasn't good. Close enough. You all right? Yep. Good there. So now I have a tenon on this end. This is going to be my bottom. I'm going to put a tenon on this end.
Okay.
And that facilitates us drilling a hole all the way through for the lamp cord and a large hole in the bottom. I'm going to smooth this up again a little bit. And I think for my own peace of mind here, I'm going to choose which is top and which is bottom. I like this for the bottom, the darker on the bottom. So this is the bottom, this is the top. So this is going to be fatter and this will be smaller. Might be a little bit taller than I normally like, but I love the spalting here. So now I'm going to go for a finish cut on that. No, I don't want a finish cut on that yet. So the top, we'll mount this in the bottom tenon and drill a 3/8 hole all the way down through to facilitate our lamp cord. And again, the center on this has already changed. This hole has changed because we took it from between centers to a tenon. So we're going to remove a little bit of that so that our drill can get a fresh start. Now again, you got a lot of meat hanging out over the headstock here, so be gentle. Okay, so we'll bring up our tailstock. That's cool. Now we'll shape this a little bit more. Okay, that's close to what we want. Actually, right now I can finish shaping that using this. That'll probably sand out. That's going to be pretty. Okay, so now we got that shaped. We can put a 3/8 drill bit into a Jacob's chuck. The 3/8 drill bit will facilitate the threaded nipple. That the 3/8 drill bit will facilitate the
right up close
the nipple. Mm-hmm. That comes in the kit, the lamp, make a lamp kit that you get at the hardware store. And so this works good. Now I have a product here that many of you probably have never heard of. This stuff here, it's called beeswax. And you can use it to clean windows. Seriously. You can use it on your bed. You can use it on tools like this to make them slide easier. You know, the old trick was to put beeswax, let it melt on your drill bit. But you just spray this on, Look how sweet that is. I use this quite a lot. You can get it online, or more and more furniture stores are starting to carry it. There's one on Lincoln Street in Lewiston, Marquardt Furniture. They carry it. I think they got a place in Portland too. But you can use it on tabletops, furniture, glassware, anything. You wouldn't think that beeswax would work on windows, but it does. And I drill this hole from the top so that I know that it's centered here. This is really the only place I care about. Makes nice hand lotion too. You know, it's liable to come out the bottom a ½ inch off center, but we don't really care. Okay, so the top hole is drilled, and this threaded piece of pipe that your lamp will go on will go right in there. Sometimes it's a little bit loose, and you may have to put a couple drops of epoxy in there or something. I do, just to be on the safe side. So that's done. So now we can you believe I did that? I took my tenon off. I took my tenon off. Let me put another one on there. Okay. Make a note to yourself, don't take the tenon off. And we'll turn that around. Get carried away here. I'm hurrying a little bit and make sure we get it all. So there. Now, before I forget it, I will pick out the front side, which is going to be right here. Rotate that 180 degrees, and I'm going to drill a hole here for my my lamp cord to come out. Now, there's a good chance that your base is going to end up somewhere up in here. It's going to move a little bit. So you may want to, you know, come up an inch, give yourself enough room. Point it right at the middle. That should do it. Now we'll take a spade bit again. 1.5 inches, a nice size. And we will make a hole in the bottom of this thing. Give us a little bit of room, a place to tie a knot so that the cord doesn't come out. Unlock your lathe. Here we go. wants to follow that crooked hole. And that's, I'm going to make it a little deeper. Actually, it doesn't matter how deep you go. I mean, you can go 3/4 of the depth of the thing if you want them. Okay, so we need to flip this around again and fix this top. We're going to turn it around again and hold it at the base. And we're going to fix that top. And at this time I would normally sand it, and this is so pretty. I think I might just talk you through the rest of it. I don't know. That should be still centered. Yep, that's good. So I'm just gonna, that needed to be smaller anyway, right? Not happy with that. That's better. That's a little better. That'll stand out. I don't know. What do you think of that shape? It's too straight in here, huh?
I agree.
Yeah.
Form is everything.
Yep. Especially on something like this. I'm still getting some bumping there. Shouldn't. Huh. Maybe this thing is maybe this thing is moving on us or what? It shouldn't be. Oh. See, the tool's probably getting dull too. We'll try it one more time. this ain't gonna work. Still straight. Better, but think now.
It's better. It still needs to come out in a little more there, but my eyes could be deceiving me.
Well, this wants to be flat right here.
Oh, yeah.
For, you know, that might be what's throwing you off.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, it wants to be domed in a little bit, so that your washers underneath your pedestal thing for the lamp won't stand too proud. Just a little bit, it doesn't take much. The bottom could be a little smaller too, but I don't know. That's not bad. The bottom's going to be right in there somewhere. So, actually, I can put this thing back on and sand it later. I'll show you the little jig I made. Ooh, look at this. I love stuff like that. Here's a piece that was left over from one of the shades, and left a 3/8 pin in the middle, concaved it, put a piece of foam on here to drive this thing so I can finish the bottom. And the bottom is a little tricky because we get this big hole in here. So as you'll see, this goes in here, unless, did I take the wrong size hole? I did. I drilled the wrong size hole. Oh, this ain't good. Huh. Well, we only need to go down there.
Enough to hold it.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. So we need a 3/8 bit. We only got to go down a couple inches. Don't hurry in too much, I guess. 3/8. Double check, make sure that's right. Yep, that's right. Okay, we don't make too much of a mess of this. That's more than enough right there. I don't think I threw it off center too much. So now that little drive pin will go in there. And we gotta change that. That's all right, it'll stay there. Pretty sure. Yeah, we gotta change that to one of these. The other way. The other way. Is that cool or what? Mm. I tried just the pin and it won't hold it. So now you have to keep in mind that you have that hole down through the middle there. This size right here. So now we can look at the overall form and say, well, do we want to change it a little bit, or of course the whole thing's bouncing. So I'm going to say I'm going to take off another 1/2 inch. I'll go to a smaller tool. Smaller tool, less friction, better cut. Okay. We want to leave at least 1/4 inch right there. Mm. Okay, so let's see if we can make a nice foot for our lamp. And then we'll go in deeper. Make sure you roll that tool that way when you get here, or you'll get a catch. Well, that doesn't look too bad. We can go deeper, I guess. So, yeah, I like that. All right, now we got about 1/4 inch of wood right there. Shit.
So close.
Oh, it's not ruined.
Nope.
No.
It helped out a little.
Broke my pin though.
Is the pin in it? Oh, it would have fallen through anyway.
Yeah, we can get it out. Yep. We'll get that out later. Anyway. Yep, that's no problem. I'll just take a carving knife and clean that up a little bit. Normally I get them a little closer than that, but
turn this way, would you?
this way. Okay.
Yeah, it's a nice, better lighting.
Okay. Yeah, that's not bad. So you got plenty of room in there. I'll fix that up a little bit better later. But you got plenty of room in there for your cord. And this here, we'll clean that out later. And I made another gadget for making the rings. I used a nice dry piece of wood for this. I put tenons on everything. Took a 1/4-inch bolt and glued it in there with a wing nut. And this is my pattern that I use to make the rings. And once I measure the diameter that I want, and there's a 1/4-inch hole drilled in the middle, I put this pattern on the piece. Cut it out like that. Seems to work better having 3 contact points. And the piece rubs up against this piece of sandpaper, which stops it from spinning. Put the piece on there and the wing nut, put it in the lathe, turn it. So that's all the gadgets I got for you. Wiring it up is pretty straightforward. You buy a kit at Lowe's or Home Depot, and they're $9 to $12. And I even used to carry like 6 or 8 different harp lengths, and now I just use what's in the kit, cut off what I don't need, and use it that way. So I don't buy anything extra except for a nice switch, an inline switch. So that's it. That's a lamp.